You've sold over 100 million of these things, which is absolutely unbelievable.
Beautyblender could be, viewed as just like a trendy, cute little pink egg, right? But it was actually this very serious tool.
World-conquering beauty industry.
The best makeup tool. My name is Rea Ann Silva, founder and CEO of Beautyblender. I created Beautyblender while working on set at Paramount Studios in Hollywood, California. Everything looked different. So makeups had to be different. And that's where I created Beautyblender. I didn't invent the sponge. I just made it better for what the times needed. So
what was the toughest thing that you experienced in taking this product to market and making it what it is now?
I've not really talked about this.
It's The Millionaire Hairstylist, where our mission is to improve the financial well-being of creative professionals. And boy, oh boy, today's episode is a world-conquering beauty industry titan, Rea Ann Silva, the founder of Beautyblender. She went from being an on-set makeup artist working in Los Angeles to growing a company that has since sold 100 million beauty blenders. She's a boss. She's going to inspire you and energize you. If you've ever thought of starting your own business, this is a conversation you are going to love. Let's get right into it. Rea Ann Silva, the founder of Beautyblender, here on The Millionaire Hairstylist. Let's go. And then one last thing that I'll do here as just part of our conversation, I'm just going to, in the spirit of Beautyblender, just give me 1 second. I'm just going to, there we go. Okay, so now
we're on.
I like it. I feel so at home.
I just wanted to match the...
Thank you.
Match the
that's
energy.
So sweet.
Well,
thank you.
A great place to start, of course, and I know you've told this story many times, but if you'll indulge us for our audience, can you just tell us your version of the Beautyblender story, where this all started for you?
Sure. So I created Beautyblender while working on set at Paramount Studios in Hollywood, California, on the show Girlfriends with the 4 beautiful young Black leading ladies of that show. I was hired by Mara Akil Brock, who was the producer and writer and creator of that show. I had met her previously on Moesha, where I had worked with Brandy for years and music video and CoverGirl and all the many things that she was very, very successful in, which gave me opportunity, right? So I got this other gig, and that show was kind of an experiment. I've talked about it before. It was one of the first shows, if not the first show, being shot and broadcast in high definition. And it was a very kind of, experimental production because everything looked different. Everything showed up different. Lighting was different. Everything was different about the look of the film. And so makeups had to be different. And that's where I created Beautyblender, because Beautyblender created this very airbrush, natural looking kind of finish to makeup. And it would be really wonderful to think that everybody you see on TV just looks naturally beautiful. But the truth of the matter is everybody has some layer of makeup or cosmetic product on their face when they're being shot. So my job was to make them look as if they weren't wearing any makeup, and airbrushing was a very new technique, but one that I was proficient in. I was one of the few people that did airbrushing for beauty makeup. It was a special effects thing, but like I was doing beauty makeup. And so they hired me, and I found that airbrushing was not a great technique on set, because if you've ever used a compressor, it's very loud. And, you make a lot of enemies in the director world.
It's a noisy last looks.
World. Yeah.
Last looks.
Yeah, right. No pulling anybody off to the side and doing a quick touch up. So I had to find a way to, continue like the continuity of the finish and the look of the shot and make everything look seamless without having to take them out to the trailer. So that was when my journey of trying to figure out how to democratize that finish. So, every makeup artist has a different touch and a different hand and a different idea of what they think looks natural. But, suddenly with edgeless, damp sponge, you were able to kind of democratize that. Everybody could get that finish really easily. And it was very balanced and very much the same from hand to hand. So that's how she was born.
That's incredible. So you you, like many entrepreneurs, found a problem and you had to solve it, and you really creatively solved it, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do. If you got a big problem, to come up with a product is like so many people out there want to start businesses and create products, right? There's a lot of people that want to do that, but breaking through to a brilliant idea is one of the toughest things. You had to figure out how to do that. How did you know that your product was good? How did you know yours was actually like, wow, hey, this is something special?
Well, because first of all, I wasn't trying to create a product to sell and build a company and have a global business. I mean, I was, like you said, Cash, really in the weeds trying to solve a problem. And I was a professional with years of experience under my belt. So, I would be remiss to give credit to, the makeup foremothers and fathers before me that came
Right.
because, I didn't invent the sponge. I just made it better for what the times needed. So, it's like a lightning bolt from God. I say sometimes like, somehow I was chosen to create this product. I don't know why, but, it wasn't like a deliberate thing. It was really very much an organic process of trying to process of elimination. Like how do I do this? And I just started, experimenting basically the whole show. I mean, basically, obviously acting was not experiential. The cast was super talented and amazing and very lovely to work with. But what was unique to me and the situation that gave me an advantage is that I was trusted to work within this experimental environment. So I was able to kind of, figure it out.
Mm-hmm. And at what point did you realize you had something that maybe other people might want?
When it worked.
Yeah.
When it worked, when I could look at the dailies and be like, great, when the actors liked the way they looked, because that's very important. As an on-set professional, your job is not to just accomplish the task at hand, but to make sure that your client is ready to be that person, whoever that is that day. If they're just being themselves and they're a superstar, then let them feel like a superstar. If they're an actor that's going through something in their character, then you need to make sure that they feel like that. So, and makeup is transformative. It helps get that person in the mindset. So, when I knew it worked was when the actors, the director, the producers all said, oh my God, the makeups look amazing. They look natural, but they look groomed. All the corrective makeup was done. Because not everybody, like I said, walks around looking like, in movie world and TV world, everybody has a little layer of something, even if it's anti-shine, even if it's powder, like you have something that democratizes your skin, makes you look smooth or even. And a lot of times, with high definition, suddenly you could see texture, you could see pores, you could see discoloration, where shooting film, you just, flood light or whatever, it would blow out. But not in high definition. So for me, it was, having the support and the confidence, knowing that everybody else thought it looked good. And it wasn't just my makeups personally. I ran a department. So it was everybody in my department. The whole team was successful.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I love that you probably weren't thinking back then, okay, what's the product market fit for this? And let's get the focus group. Like the focus group was the clients, the directors, like the people, looking at the result, and your addicted celebrity clients to the result. And I think that's such a powerful thing for founders to take away, where it's like passionately look to solve a problem.
Right.
I always wanted to put on the product tested on celebrities, because that was pretty much,
tested.
not tested on animals, but, tested on celebrities, because they were the ones that supported and legitimized
Of course.
Beautyblender, because Beautyblender could be, viewed as just like a trendy, cute little pink egg, right? But it was actually this very serious tool that, solved a lot of people's problems, gave a lot of people confidence.
Are you single-handedly responsible for people not using airbrushing? Because I don't see airbrushing being done aside from special effects.
Yeah. I don't either.
That's
you
a
want to just take
very
it,
good
Rea Ann?
question. I don't know. We probably have to do some sort of a study or poll or something. I don't really know, but I will say that I do believe that airbrushing is a beautiful technique. It's just not practical in all circumstances, right? You need electricity. I remember early on in my journey, there was this couple in New York, makeup artist, and I think maybe like her engineer boyfriend or something. They made this really cool cordless, like rechargeable, handheld airbrush machine. And I felt very, very fabulous when I used to use that because it was like this modern little orb thing that I would just pull out on set and people were like, oh, what do you have? But it was like an amazing makeup technique to use, but just not practical. When you have 2 seconds to run in between shots and last looks, like you said, or just like when you say, wait a minute, stop, hold, I just need a second. You can't stay there for 5 minutes. You got to get in, get out and do your thing and fix whatever it is. So Beautyblender was that tool where there's no blending involved. You just bounce on the skin with makeup on it and it deposits the makeup and blends it and you're able to cover and do it or erase or blend in a mark or whatever it is. It's just one of those crazy things that just worked really well.
Well, and I think it's important because I want to get to the part of your story, and we will as we go through this timeline of when it becomes this ubiquitous product in the industry. And I'll tell you, Rea Ann, like you guys were very kind to send some product samples, but you didn't have to. My office and my closet are the same room. My girlfriend has 4 of them over on the shelf. I own one, and I've only ever put what makeup. I like everyone who's listening knows what this is and how this works, which is crazy to consider. So I want to get to that part of the story eventually, but can you just walk us through from the moment when you went, okay, this works. So take us on that stage of sort of like, okay, now I actually have something. What do I do with this idea and where do I go from here? And who did you talk to and what did you explore?
So when the season was about to end and we were going to go on hiatus, right? I was going to have a little more free time to figure it out. In the meantime, me and my team, we had been hand cutting the sponges every day. So I was a very busy makeup artist at that time. So I used to double, triple dip. Don't listen, local 706, sorry. But I used to double, triple dip. I would lead my team. I would go to a celebrity's house for lunch, do their makeup, come back, finish the day, end the day, go somewhere else and whatever. So, and then I would travel. So everywhere I would go, I would look at the back of sponges packages. So like if you go to CVS or Dwayne Reed or any of your, places, I would buy from professional outlets, but I knew that professional outlets didn't manufacture in the way that I needed help. So I would go to these stores and I would see, who was making these sponge products. So the first thing I did was try to figure out how to make it. And this was my source. But I remember originally thinking like, I did some like very, beginning kind of effects classes and stuff. And I was like, oh, maybe I can bake the latex in my oven. Maybe I can make a mold.
Sure.
Maybe, I mean, it was like, I really was just not, I'm truly am a makeup artist, DNA. That's fundamentally who I am. I've become a business person, but in the beginning, I was just thinking like, how can I get this done? Because I didn't know I was creating a product that was going to be a global product. I thought if I'm lucky, I can sell some products to other makeup artists that are going to have the same challenge I'm going to have because we're all going to be shooting high def soon. So, it wasn't on a scale that was overwhelming that I was first trying to make this product. It was really just for me and my peers. I figured, I could go to friends, Namies and Nigels. They love me. I love them. Maybe they can sell some sponges for me to other professionals. That was really my mindset.
If you are a creative professional who wants to improve your relationship with money, go to millionairehairstylistpodcast.com, create a free student account, and you can access an entire library of educational resources geared at improving your financial well-being, including a lesson on the 3 phases of wealth building for creative professionals. Go to millionairehairstylistpodcast.com and sign up today. That's such an interesting moment. And at what point did you realize, okay, I can't do this at home? We like to say, Rea Ann, that solopreneur is slowpreneur. So when did this become more than a one-person conversation? And when did you realize, okay, maybe I need to bring in some other people?
So it was when I finally found a company that would listen to me. So I reached, and by the way, there was only, 2 or 3 companies in the US at this time that were making foam implements for consumer goods, for people to use on their bodies, their faces, or whatever, personally. So Victoria Vogue, you mentioned, was one of them. And they were in Pennsylvania, and they actually had an 800 number on the back of the bag. So made and distributed by Victoria Vogue. And then there was the 800 number. So I called, and because there was no Google back then. There was no Google. You would dial 411 to get a phone number. You guys look really young. You probably even skipped that whole generation. But yeah, so I called the number. They connected me to a woman named Catherine Bailey. And to this day, Catherine and I still work together, but she was the one that took the time to listen to me, to understand what I was doing, and take the time to go back to her company and say, hey, I think, this makeup artist in Hollywood, which was one of the funny things I said. I was like, how many of your products are actually designed by people that are working?
Mm.
Like,
Mm.
who designs your products? Is it like some kind of engineer or just like a dreamer? Like, I'm actually in the trenches. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
I need to get this thing made.
Yeah.
And so she was like, all right, okay. So got her to sign an NDA, which is very important. People, don't give your secrets away. And then she came back and said, okay, send the product. I sent it to her, and I'll never forget, because I'd never heard this term before. She goes, it was like the palm slap to my forehead when I saw your product. Like, why didn't we think about it? And I said, because you're not makeup artists. And so that was, really the game-changing moment, from having the idea and the handmade prototype that because we kind of MacGyver and craft things all the time to make them work on set. But that was that moment where that transition happened from being an idea to actually a product that was being thought of and planned out in a production, like manufacturing type of way.
I have a question. You said you weren't a business person in the beginning. You were primarily a makeup artist, yet you had the intuition or maybe some advice from someone who told you have them sign an NDA, which is a pretty smart business move. So something tells me you were kind of a businesswoman, but was there anyone speaking into your life at the time, and mentor, advisors, or anybody helping you with this?
I would say that makeup artists are really good voyeurs. Okay. We watch and we look and we listen. Anybody really that works
so
closely with the talent on set
Yes.
has to have these skills, because you have to learn how to dip and dodge and avoid the laser focused target of whatever could come your way, right?
Mhm.
You mitigate
totally
issues.
right.
So in that vein, I had seen many of my different peers try to make products that they, felt would be great for the market. And inevitably one thing or another would happen, and that idea would not live. And so I think I just thought, I don't know that I even knew what NDA stood for, at the time, but I called, I unfortunately at this point had been, involved in a breakup that led to a kind of very, public kind of legal battle with my daughter's father. I mean, they're so common now, but I would say like I was one of the first. So I had an attorney. I had a family law attorney. So when I had this idea, I contacted that person, and they said, well, I have a colleague that might be able to help you. And, one of the things as a department head makeup artist, I mean, maybe I'm not a businesswoman. When I say that, maybe I shouldn't say that so much, because I will say that I knew that 2 + 2 = 4. Okay.
Yeah,
I knew how to collect my
business.
checks, deposit them in the bank, and pay my bills. But it is definitely not that simple in business. And the same thing goes for being a department head, I knew how to hire people. I knew how to look for people to help me accomplish what I needed to do. Because as a department makeup artist, you aren't the one that knows everything. You're the one that you're resourceful. You know how to make it happen, and the production trusts you to make it happen within the parameters of however you make it happen.
Yep.
So
here's the amount of manpower you have. Here's the budget you have. Here's the amount of time you have each morning to get ready. You know, you're running, and especially on a major TV series, you know, you've got a full trailer, you've got all the keys and the seconds and the onsets.
You're coordinating with different departments.
Yes.
And so there is a level of, I guess, I don't know, organization, let's say, that you are aware of, but definitely never applied to actual ownership business. You know, it's always, I don't own the production. I just want to be included in the next one. So I'm making it smooth so I can get, you know, makeup artists and hair, we're unemployed after every job. So, you know,
I know
you want to get the next job.
It's like waiting for that phone to ring.
I have friends in corporate America that they freak out about, you know, like layoffs after they've had a job for like 4 years. I'm like, dude, you're going to be fine. Like, I'm unemployed every day. Like, every day I finish a job, I have to.
That's a wrap, everyone. That's it. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
We actually drink champagne when we get fired. Yeah.
Exactly. We celebrate it.
That's right.
Yeah.
You do have to have a very strong degree of faith to make it in like working with celebrities.
Oh, yeah.
Working in film, you know, getting into freelance. It's like, yeah. And that's a really interesting perspective you have on that business. Like, I'd never looked at it that way. I was felt that way, that I was, the second I didn't have a job, I was like, the terror set in the beginning of my career when, you know, you're just starting to build. And you do build up faith and you build trust in yourself as your skills start to show themselves. The praise starts to come. You get clients who are addicted to you, which is a great feeling. And I think that's it's an interesting perspective. And it's a toughness, I think, that makes great entrepreneurs and makes great business people. Like, you having that toughness.
It's a humbling because when you don't have the security of knowing where your next check is coming from, you learn patience. You learn to not always say what you think.
Right.
Yeah. And you
Diplomacy.
learn the politics of, you know, making someone know you're confident in what you do, but you're not arrogant. You know, there's so many nuances that go along with being a professional that works, you know. There's a lot of reason why people don't work. Some of it's skill, but some of it's personality. Some of it's just not having reading the room.
Yeah. Yeah. And knowing what's a real crisis and what's not a crisis, and knowing when it's a problem now we're just diving into minutia of production, but I love that you know this. It's like, when is this worth bringing to the line producer? And when is it, I can figure this out on my own and I don't need to take up part of their day to freak out over, you know, it's like, where is that line of this is a problem that needs to escalate beyond my department, and when can I solve this internally?
And that's what they appreciate, because a producer doesn't want you to bring every single challenge you have to them. They're hiring you to be a problem solver too. Yeah.
How can I help? But otherwise, please just make it happen, and whatever support you need, I'll give it to you. But like,
make it work.
Just make it work. Okay, so you know this is a business you want to build. So who are some of the people, and what is that process? Before we get to Sephora and Ulta Beauty, tell us about that, like the teenage years or the middle school years of this business where you're starting to build it, you're starting to do product testing. Who's coming into the business at that point? Who are you working with? Who's moving the needle for you? What's happening in that now business incubation era?
So there's a few things. So I was a single parent at that time. I had been in production and working for several years. And I knew that I needed something because I didn't want to be in the trailer the rest of my life. Okay. I had seen many of my brothers and sisters in the union, you know, at an older age, kind of like, you know, they're working because it's what they do, but it's not what they wish they could be doing. Mm-hmm. You know, like they still have a love for the craft, but they still have the dream of doing something else, right? So I knew that there was going to come a time in my life where I wanted to have the choice. If I wanted to continue to work, I would have the option to do so. But if I wanted to venture off into a different career, I also would have the option to do that. So the way it happened was my first thing was for these products that I was hand cutting on set to be able to be materialized in some form of bulk where I wasn't doing one at a time. So when I figured out that I could deliver a few at a time based on a long negotiation, it's like so much to go into, but basically I was able to, get a quantity on a regular basis. I went to the people I know because I don't know Sephora. There was no Ulta at the time. Sephora wasn't what it is now. I think Sephora may not have even been in existence 20 years ago. I'm not even sure. Maybe. But maybe because I think it was in France it started. I remember being in Paris with different actors and press junkets and stuff, and I used to see Sephora, but it hadn't come stateside here. But I went to like my professional outlets, my friends, my Namies, my Nigels, my Alcone, my, all the ones that supplied products to production, because I knew that was my customer. That was my audience. Other makeup artists were going to be really the only ones that could appreciate an
That's still where your head is at the time. This is still a professional product.
Pro. Yeah.
Right.
I wasn't thinking it was going to be a global business. So those were the first retailers that were lovely enough and believed in me because they'd seen my career for several years. I wasn't, here today, gone tomorrow. I was very much a working makeup artist. And so, they were my first customers, and they're still my customers today.
It's a beautiful benefit of our careers that we get the opportunity to build relationships and meet new people and build those relationships over years, where it's like, I'd be going to set and meet 50 new people in a week project, and that's different when you start becoming, an entrepreneur. You start going down the road of like building a business, or you're not on set anymore. It's harder to go meet that many people at the same amount of time. So I think it's amazing that you tapped into those relationships. Absolutely no luck in the outcome whatsoever, but a beautiful benefit of the career that we can have.
Well, listen, there was plenty of grace and plenty of luck. But what I'm saying is there was a lot of hard work that allowed that transaction between the pro store and myself to happen. If they didn't see me for years coming in and my POs from productions coming in and they saw, that what I was doing, they may not have paid attention.
Was it called Beautyblender at the time?
Yeah, it's always been called Beautyblender.
And did that, what were you in the shower and the name just poof into your head, or was it when you were in the trailer, or where did that name come from? It's such a good name.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much. I don't know exactly. I think, a lot of my creative ideas come at night when I'm kind of winding down and I'm laying there. And I think I was an avid, a voracious fashion magazine voyeur. I used to get because I used to do a lot of editorial work too. So I knew all the photographers and the stylists and the producers and all that stuff. So I was always, buying stuff, and I would look at advertisements and how clever they could be, or I don't know. I just kind of put the two together. One day I wrote a list, I remember, of like all of the, attributes of a sponge, right? And then what does it do? And it was like beauty blender. It blended your beauty,
So good.
I mean, it wasn't even I don't think it happened so quickly. And it's so crazy about different things in my life, and probably yours and everybody that's listening to. Like sometimes things just click and it doesn't take a lot of thought. Like sometimes we second guess ourselves and we think, well, maybe this isn't great. And I'm not saying I didn't do that with Beautyblender. I made the full circle. I went through all the things and came back to it. But, sometimes those first initial gut ideas you have are the right ones. And Beautyblender was like one of the first things on my list. I think I remember I had like a list of maybe like 10 names that I thought I was going to use for Beautyblender. But it just to me, it described everything that you needed to know about what this was.
It's perfect.
Does that brand aesthetic that comes along with that name come from you?
Yes, talk about that.
Like, where does that come from? The aesthetic that
What do you
put
mean the
together?
brand? When you say brand aesthetic, what do you mean?
So the brand's image and identity, like the colors that you use, the way that the whole brand comes across as extremely consistent. It has a very specific voice. It has a like when you see it, you know it, right? And it's almost like a person. Does that come from you?
Well, yes, it all comes from me. It's all me. I do everything. It takes a village. But essentially, in all seriousness, yes, because Beautyblender created a category. Okay. So it was the first of its kind. So the fortune in that is that when you are the first in the category, you're the category creator, then it kind of sets the tone and pace for everything else that you do that becomes copied and emulated, right? So to me, the like pillars of what I was thinking about with Beautyblender was simplicity, because we're modernizing the way you do makeup. That was my first tagline: modern, simple, clean aesthetic. And, it just so happened that when you take the edges off of a triangle sponge, you get the shape of an egg. And that's, when you boil it down, that's what happened. And I just made it bigger. So an egg is the most simple and basic form of creation of life. I mean, Literally. If you want to get really deep
about it. Very strong structure, right?
It was just very, the idea was to keep everything very clean, very easy, very, just the shape. I looked at the Nike swoosh. I looked at certain brandings. I mean, so when I started thinking I'm going to do a company, I'm a bit obsessive about everything. Like if that thing clicks, like I was saying, and I think about something I want, then I really just research it. Right. And so one of the things that happened along the way, a stylist, you spend endless hours on sets with people. So a stylist, when one shoot, I forget, she was reading this book called The 22 Immutable Laws of Branding. And nothing about branding. The word branding was even a new thing. Like people weren't talking about branding before. And so she had this book, and it was a marketer's book. I think I don't know how she told me she got it. But anyway, I went and I bought the book. And in the book, it taught me a lot about how to perceive and think about your product. And some of the ideas, or some of the rules that I created with the imaging and the look, are still there today. But of course, 20 years later, and with an amazing creative team that I've had over the course of many years, we've been able to kind of evolve the concept of the very simple, clean, modern idea.
Wow.
I think I honestly, I didn't realize, Rea Ann, but now that you say it, it makes so much sense to me, how much your skill set as a makeup artist contributed to your vision for this product, because there is such a specificity to what you do in that particular department. There is such a precision. There's such the voyeuristic, paying attention to trends and paying attention to what people are doing. And I mean, I remember you were doing that when you were coming up in hair and paying attention to, what were the trends that your clients were asking for. And there's something about that really positioned you well to have something to say as a brand.
Listen, there are gifts to being a certain age. Okay. And what I mean by that is becoming a makeup artist before the digital era. I learned to pre-touch so I don't have to retouch, right? Because you were valued as a makeup artist by how little money they would spend on retouching in their budget. So nowadays we have filters, we have Facetune, we have Photoshop, we have all these inexpensive ways to correct mistakes. So I didn't come from that era. The era of makeup artistry, hair, photography that I came from, you had to actually be a real specific, excellent artisan within that skill set that you were performing, because there were other ones that were more detail oriented. There were more, they drilled down more and more and more. And those people were the ones that got paid the most because the results were the best. So you learn that it's not how many followers you have. It's not how great your content looks. It's, how it translates in the editing room when you're not there to explain why this line is here and that one's here. It's like there was a real different mentality then. And I'm not saying what's going on now is bad. I'm just saying it's different. So these were the ways people were valued then. People are valued different now. And but the same, right? It's for that. It's all about beauty. It's however you get there. But it was just different. And I feel like there were gifts that I was given because I'm from that era, And also another thing I can say about that is I was also the kind of artist, kind of like if you could call it a 360 creative artist, right? So I wasn't someone that just specialized in film and television. I also had an agent. I did editorial, which was a different look. I started in music video. I did commercials. I did industrials, I did all kinds of different jobs in different arenas of artistry that really did teach me a lot that I don't know. I don't know that it's necessary anymore, but for me and how I created Beautyblender, I don't know that I would have had Beautyblender if I didn't know all those things.
So there's a part in the
They live on
story
themselves.
for every entrepreneur, Rea Ann. Years ago, before I was in film, I worked for a product that was on Shark Tank. I was in marketing and I got hired as the chief marketing officer for a small startup. And I went to a trade show once and I'm standing there in line with some of the other owners of the businesses that have their booths at the trade show. And there's this older guy and he's in his 60s and he's got some product. And I said, "So what's your product?" And he describes him. He goes, "This is my third product. I'm really hoping this is the one that hits." So there are people who create a product and maybe they get some middling success from it, but very few break through. So what were the breakthrough moments where you went from the specialty makeup stores and beauty supply shops to the exponential growth? Or was there no exponential? I don't know. Tell us about that part where you actually really graduate and now you've broken through that sort of incubation.
So there's intention. So, my intention was different starting than my intention was, a little way through the process. So when I tell you in the beginning, it was a pro product and I really only thought pro people would understand it. There was a part in that growth and the evolution, let's call it 3 or 4 years. Okay. That I started to realize like, wow, I think we really have something here. I think I can really do something with this. I think this product could cross over to just like the everyday woman that just wants to do their makeup. Because what was happening was I was getting contacted all the time by not the big chain stores, but like private boutiques, beauty supplies that were privately owned, or salons, and saying, "Hey, we heard about Beautyblender. Can we buy them?" And that presented other challenges in your entrepreneurial journey about scaling, but it made me realize at that point, wow, this is more than a pro product potentially. So what can I do to prepare myself for that growth? So one of those things was scaling production, being able to finance it, and it was those non-professional, like non-production type of professionals calling me that said, "Hey, we want to put you in our store." And it wasn't a pro store. That made me start realizing, wow, maybe I could, and you have to understand that sounds kind of crazy, but this is, 20 years ago when there was no internet, there was no e-commerce, there was the bar of entry was really protected by the heritage brands, right? Like your L'Oreal's, your Maybellines, your Revlons, your LVMH, like cracking the code to get into these businesses and have them support you was nearly impossible as an artist. They would hire you to consult, but they would never give you a brand, like it was a very different time. So when the other stores started to come knocking is when I started realizing like, maybe I have something here.
And you did.
What a moment.
I understand you never raised any equity to finance.
No, I still own it 100%. Yeah.
So
this guy right here.
Let's talk about the money now. It's horrible. But I want to know. What I want to know is there's a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people who have this mindset of, well, I want to start a product, but I don't have the money, and I don't know where I'm going to get the $10 million I'm going to need to start it, or whatever's in their mind. Right, this big money barrier didn't seem to be an issue for you as you wanted to build your own brand. Why didn't you go the fundraising route? Why did you keep 100% ownership?
So the assumption a lot of people have is that I didn't go that route, that I didn't try. But who was going to invest in this?
Interesting.
It had never been seen. I was charging $20 for something that was free in a compact. How was I going to get people to pay $20 for this? This is, business people, right?
Yeah.
They're numbers people. They're not creative people. Well, some of them can be, but for the most part, this didn't make good investment sense for anybody. So the beauty of Beautyblender for me and, and I guess a lesson to anybody that, you can't eat the whole cow at one time. You have to do it bite by bite. And I know that sounds really gross. I said that the other day to my daughter. She's like, that's the worst analogy.
I think it's better than eat the frog. I think eat the cow. It makes more sense to me.
I mean, whatever. The pizza, you can't throw the whole pizza. Okay? But it's true. Like Beautyblender was one product. A lot of people say, I want to create a line. Right?
Yeah.
That's a very lofty statement. I don't even know that they realize how lofty that statement is, because that means you have multiple products that you're developing, you have MOQs, you're producing. It's very expensive, right? So Beautyblender was one product and it was foam. It was a very special type of foam, but one product and one foam and one little bar soap or one little liquid soap. It wasn't very expensive. And the woman that I ended up, working with, Catherine Bailey, who helped me in the beginning, worked at a company that she was able to connect me with somebody that was also curious about my dream. These are people that work for bigger companies that are told to go out and find innovation, but they just find let's do another lipstick. Let's do another eyeshadow. Let's do another shampoo. This shampoo's different because it has this in it or what, So when Beautyblender came along, it was like nobody was paying attention to tools. And it was a fairly inexpensive tool. If you know anything, as I think you probably do, Cash, about the expense of making brushes and, different tools that have different multi-materials within them. Like this is one material.
Yeah.
So for me, it was expensive because I couldn't afford it at the time, but it wasn't millions of dollars I was talking about. I think I mortgaged my house that I call it the house that Brandy built, because working with Brandy so much, I was able to buy a house and I was able to get some equity. I took like $75,000 and I started my business.
Wow. So a lot of people would look at that as like, oh my gosh, the risk. Did you see risk in this?
I'm an idiot. I mean, no risk, no reward, right? I mean, I really am. It's like, I figured, look, what's the worst thing? What's the worst thing that could happen if I try? Right. If I don't try, I know 100%. What's going to happen.
I mean, it's so much guts. One, you're not every day you're unemployed. So now you've got a house, you got a mortgage.
And I'm a single parent. Could I have any more fear in my life?
But a lot of people would say, look at the responsibility. There's so much responsibility. I can't take that risk. But I love that you did. That's amazing.
A lot of people have fear-based, I'm sorry, I made to cut you off, but it's just to speak to that for a moment. It's like, listen, I have fears, but I think I have different kind of fears. Now my fear threshold is different now than it was then. Right? Like my fear now is that I employ, 100 or more people and I don't want to let them down because they all support their families based on what we do. right? So my fear, like my responsibility, my level of responsibility, or I hate to even call it fear, but my concern is different. Um, Back then, it was like feeding myself, my kid. And even though I was let me tell you, like I was making some great rates, but I had my kid in private school. I was trying to do more for my child than I had. And that cost more money. And, for me to mortgage my house and take a little, take some money and take a risk, I figure I can overcome that. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Beautyblender wasn't the first idea I had.
Really?
I had tried
Really?
to
Yeah.
do something else. I had tried to create these brush rolls. I had these really cool brush rolls because the way my setup was really cool. Like now setups are like so extreme and amazing, but back in the day they were very basic, right? Like makeup artists would show up with a little wood box and then they'd have like some things out, but I had like really fabulous setups. And so I created these like really wild, furry, like shaggy brush rolls and all these kind of things that I wanted to do. And I just didn't have the time to figure it out. And so it fell flat. It was like a really crazy time in my career. So, I already knew I had tried to do that. So, making Beautyblender, the hardest part about making Beautyblender was trying to figure out how to make it, how to actually make it. Because we were cutting them, but how to manufacture them for production, but I just said, what do I have to lose?
You probably don't know how comforting it is to hear that in this story so far, you're a brilliant, successful makeup artist. You had an idea. It's sort of people love it. People don't understand that there were other ideas that didn't work or that didn't do as well or that, you didn't pursue. I think it's
Couldn't even bring to the market. Like I never got that far.
It's amazing to hear that it's not like, this isn't a first try success story. I think it's really encouraging, one, but it's also realistic. And I think we hear these stories sometimes, but like people tell their stories and when someone tells it, it just sounds easier than it is. And you probably went through a lot more hardship than just maybe one idea that didn't work out. What was the toughest thing that you experienced in taking this product to market and making it what it is now?
I've not really talked about this. When I first started Beautyblender, because I was so busy working as a makeup artist, and I guess I was really, I guess I'm a very motivated person. Like I just told you about my dreams of how I wanted to raise my kid and what I was trying to do. I didn't come from money. So I also knew not only am I taking care of my kid, but at some point my parents don't have a plan. I'm going to have to take care of them. So I was highly motivated to try to find another parallel path of income. So I was always looking, I guess I'm a hustler. I was hustling, trying to figure out what I can do, right? One of the things I did early on in Beautyblender was, while I had come up with this plan, I had seen that the hand cut sponges that we were creating in our trailer were really popular. And they were like sprouting legs and walking away. Like literally the actors would just stick them in their, like we couldn't use them again anyway, but every day we had to make more. I was like, I need some help. I'm not going to be able to do this on my own. I tried to do everything on my own before, but there's just not enough hours in the day with all the things I'm doing. So I invited someone to come in and work with me. And I was, again, very naive. And I gave them power in the business. And so one of the hardest things was realizing that although it was maybe my heart was in the right place and it was the right thing to do at the time, the person wasn't the right person to be my partner. I was kind of more married to that person than I was my own partner. It's really like business partnerships are very serious, and I didn't realize it at the time, but mitigating that relationship, closing that loop and that circle so that I could really grow was a big obstacle for me. So, beware of the people that you bring into your idea with you, because those people can become very much a wanted part, or, unwanted part in your business, and you have to deal with it. So you have to be careful about that, because I know a lot of creative people, especially if you're busy working, they try to figure out ways to achieve their goals, and they invite partners in, they invite family in, they invite their cousin and their aunt, or, their whatever, to come and work with them. And listen, those aren't always great ideas to bring those kind of people in.
Was that same person
Okay.
that you brought into the trailer in that early stage? You said that you brought someone in to help you.
Well, she was a part of.
Okay, so this is that same person
work
that you're
under me.
got it, and you had to buy her out eventually.
Yeah,
and that's hard. That's a very difficult, because that's like a little mini breakup, in a business context.
Well, I thought I was being very generous, but I was actually killing myself.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I thought I was being generous I thought I needed to give somebody something to help me. And I didn't have money to give, right? Because I'm just working. So it wasn't like, hey, I'm going to pay somebody. I couldn't afford to pay somebody. So you give them a piece, right? You say, you be my partner and you help me do this because you're not as busy as I am. Actually, I was the only one employing this person. So they only worked for the most part when I worked, which makes it even harder because, but, you never really know somebody until you when money becomes in like you're an Oreo cookie and money's the filling, right? When money becomes a part of the decision making, the relationship, the power struggle, all those things, it can become very toxic, and it can show you that it's not the right person to be with you. So ultimately we ended up, going our separate ways, but I had to stunt the growth of Beautyblender. This was way in the beginning. This was before Beautyblender really started to retail or anything. It was like in the very beginning.
What was the lesson that you took away from that experience that has helped you now hire hundreds of people? I'm sure.
Yeah, because you've done this very successfully since. As far as hiring
you've done this very well.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, contracts are important. Attorneys that understand you and know where you're going, priceless. I mean, they're expensive, but they are priceless. I've had the same attorney now the whole time. Those are very important things. Like, beware of who you invite into your house.
Yeah, that's such good advice.
It cannot work out. And it can be like, it was very stressful. I was, like I said, a very busy working artist, a makeup artist at the time. I was a mother, and I was also, dealing with the conflict of someone that would just disagree because they wanted to be right, or they just wanted to, like not making sound decisions. It became like an ego thing. And there were other peripheral things going on with that person. But, the big message is just, think about, if you're thinking about bringing someone in, think about the contract, the partnership agreement, and, the dissolution agreement, like all those things you want to figure out. Like, it's kind of like a prenup. Like, how are we going to divorce? You don't want to go into a partnership thinking about that, but you have to, because when it's time, when you want to go your separate ways, to figure it out then is a lot more toxic and difficult than doing it up front.
So you made your mistake with the first person, but you still knew you needed help. You're let's say you're now starting to build your business. It's getting busier. There's only 24 hours in the day. You can't do it all, but you do need someone. What was the first person that you hired successfully, and what did you have them doing?
So it was the woman, Catherine Bailey, who I had found already at this point. I did all the discovery. I did all the things, right? And I hate to say it because it sounds like, well, I did it, but the person that was helping me was more being directed than
Right.
actually
Right.
ideating. So, which was also part of the issue. So, the first person that I found to help me manufacture Beautyblender was a woman, Catherine Bailey at Victoria Vogue. You said it, Jordan, earlier. And she was instrumental in getting Beautyblender to a point where we could actually manufacture it. So she was the first person I hired, but she worked for free for the first couple years. Yeah, and she worked for free. It was really interesting. Timing, timing is everything. I found her at a time when Victoria Vogue was starting to outsource all of their production to Asia. So their teams were shrinking. People were being let go because they were no longer needed. And during the time that she had started to work with us, she had actually been let go. And it was a very unfair situation at the time. She had been with them for like 20 years. And it was just like, it just, it didn't make sense when she told me, but it was an opportunity for me to say, hey, okay, guess what? We're going to do this then, And so as soon as we started retailing and making money, I started paying her, and
Why do you think she was willing to work for free for all that time?
Okay, so that's a good point. I meant to say that. I think that the way that her departure from the company left a really bad taste in her mouth. And this was a project she had brought to the company. And I didn't realize this till after she had told me this later. But they had told her that she could work on the Beautyblender crazy idea on her own time, but not during their hours, not during their time. So they never included Beautyblender in their actual,
non-compete.
I don't know, what do you call it? Like, they didn't give Beautyblender their business consideration. So she looked at it as an opportunity because she believed in the product at this point. She believed in the product. So she knew that I knew nothing. And if she helped me, we could actually take it to market. And I told her, when we start making money, I will pay you. And I gave her some equity, and, that's probably
okay.
why.
So she did become a minority equity partner as part of that.
It's a sort of partner. It was like a stock appreciation agreement. It's not real equity, but it is if there's any transaction that happens, you get paid out, but you don't get to say I own the business.
I love that you did that, by the way, because we do talk about that a lot. Like there's more than one way to bring on resources and people that can help you. And I think it's important for people to understand, by the way, that there is such a thing as equity that's not a partnership. That's a really interesting model, by the way. Because like you said, you still want it to be 100%. And I'm sure there's a lot of people on the way that would have been like, well, I'll do X, Y, and Z if you'll give me 5%, 10%, 15%. What made you just know this whole time you wanted to own the whole thing?
Well, I didn't. That's why I brought someone in the beginning. I mean, I didn't know the whole time when I was really hopeful that it's like, like I said, marrying somebody, you're hopeful. You're thinking this relationship is going to be amazing and you're going to have this amazing future together.
Oh, of course. And then you had that. Right. Okay. So you learned from that experience.
Yeah, I didn't
and that was, got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
And that's probably
right.
why
it was
I
that
still
experience
don't,
that you're like, not never again.
I have PTSD. I don't know. I don't know, but I tell people all the time because, I get a lot of comments about, oh, it's amazing you still own the business. And it is. But honestly, I don't know if I'm stupid or smart. Like, I don't know, but for what it doesn't matter because it is what it is. And I'm here and it's great. But the reason that I own this company is thankfully I never needed that infusion of cash to grow Beautyblender because Beautyblender grew very quickly, very much, very quickly. And for the first probably 6-7 years, I didn't take any money from Beautyblender. I was dumping everything back in so that we could grow, So I was continuing to work as a makeup artist. I remember I would show up on set and people would be using Beautyblender and they'd be like, why are you here?
because wholesale orders had to be paid for up front.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Rea, we have about 10 minutes left before the end of our appointment with you, and we want to be respectful of your time. And I feel like we're watching this incredible movie, and we're just in these early chapters of the movie. And so I want to do that thing where it fades to black and then it cuts to, the years later. Now that you're running this large company, you've sold over 100 million of these things, is my understanding, which is absolutely unbelievable. What have you learned about making decisions for now? Now it's not just a makeup department in a trailer. Now it's a whole company. And what are some of the best decisions you've made? What are some of the decisions maybe that you've learned from along now that you're running this very large ship?
Yeah. Yeah, it's totally different. And because it became so popular, what happens to any entrepreneur that has a good idea and becomes profitable? I like to call them my fans come calling, right? So you start getting copycat products, you start getting, knockoffs, you start getting, competition in your market, which the 22 Immutable Laws of Branding, by the way, that book told me that you need competition in your category. If you're a category creator, you can't stand alone and grow. It's harder to grow without competition. So I don't know if I believe that, but I'm going to go with it because that is
because it'd be nice to have none.
the truth of my reality. So
no inventor likes seeing the copycat. It never feels good.
No, it doesn't. I've seen it.
It never
feels
good. Yeah, especially when the copycat has to spend zero money in marketing because they just copy everything you do. So, where I have to run a business, I have to have marketing initiatives, I have to create demand. They just spin off the top, right? They just literally, copy everything you do, which, I have attorneys, and then you pay attorneys to take people down. And it's just, these are the things, there's great benefits to having big companies, but there's also, the great responsibilities that to keep your business healthy, you have to do the unfun things, and those are some of the unfun things, that is a big difference between being a startup and an entrepreneurial business that's seeing growth and excitement. I mean, it's just like, my creative mind was just like going all the time, just coming up with all kinds of like ideas to promote, products to create, ways to get it out there. And, then you start realizing when you have to pay attention to the efficiencies of your forecasting and your project management and demand planning, because that's where you spend your money. And, it just changes everything. And then, let's talk about the 100 people you support and the personalities and all the things that you have to deal with that, in a way that, translates your heart. I believe I'm a conscious, compassionate boss. And, I have people that tell me, oh, you have to do this way or you have to do that way. And you have to kind of always like stay true to the core of who you are within the constraints of running a healthy business. So it's, it's a little bit of a circus act.
Is there an area of the business like finance, marketing, people, management, HR that you find that's just not your thing? You don't want to do that?
Nope.
Wow.
Because
why do you say
in order
that?
to do it, you got to know it all and you got to love it all, because you've got to be able to talk to those people and you've got to be able to understand where they're coming from. And in order to make them feel supported and confident in doing their jobs, you have to understand what they do. There's not one area that I can say, oh, I don't do that. No. I mean, I don't physically do it, but I don't shy away from it either. Like I said, I think I'm a good department head. I know how to hire the right people.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes they're not always right, but I make mistakes and then I can fix it. And, sometimes certain people just aren't right for your company. Sometimes they get better offers. Beautyblender is a great business that people poach from because I am still privately owned. Think about it. When you're a company that's been bought by LVMH or Estee Lauder or L'Oreal, they're going to think twice about poaching you. Not those big companies, not the big companies. I'm not talking about them. Anybody who wants to hire, like, say, my marketing person or my digital person, right? They're going to go and poach from me before they poach from Estee Lauder, LVMH, or L'Oreal, because they don't want to be known as the person that took somebody from them, right? So being being an island isn't great all the time too, you know?
Wow.
I love that was your answer. I get it all the time. I talk to students or entrepreneurs, creatives, and they're like, "Well, can't I just like? Well, I don't need to know that. I can pay someone to know that, or I don't need to do that, or can't I just do that and then give it to someone else?" And it's like, well, no, you do need to understand numbers. You need to understand people. You need to understand how to make decisions in your business when you're 100% owner. Like when you're the founder, you got to know there's the decisions on your back, right?
But full disclosure, Cash, that wasn't my answer 15 years ago.
What was your answer 15 years ago?
I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
You learn. Catastrophes are a great teacher.
Yeah.
You know, like problems and challenges that you have in your business. You know, if you're honest with yourself and you take responsibility, because everything stops with me. At the end of the day, what happens at Beautyblender isn't someone else's doing. I'm the one that gets sued. I'm the one that gets, you know what I mean? So, you know, but, you know, 15 years ago, I would say, oh, I'm a great person. I still say I'm a great person at hiring and recognizing talent, but then you can't just walk away from it. You know, you have to know what these people are doing or not do, most importantly, not doing.
Right.
You know,
tell me about
it. So with the time we have left, I want to just do something fun because we've been in the trenches with you in this story, and given that we all have lots of experience on set, I just want to ask if you have a particularly favorite crazy on-set celebrity story. I'll give you one to kick us off, which is that I was doing a feature with a very, very famous celebrity actress who I will not name, who every single day had her makeup artist do her makeup from foundation to finish 3 times in a row before she was happy with it. And it took her 8 hours to get to set each day. So that's my crazy on-set story. Anything come to mind for you? And I just lost a light there. I lost the pink. That was our time. No, but please regale us if anything comes to mind from your. I mean, because by the way, Tupac, Biggie, Diddy. I mean, you worked with some of the biggest artists, some of the biggest celebrities in your day.
Yeah, I mean, I was, you know, listen, rap wasn't the highly budgeted production that it is now. I mean, I worked on the lowest budget rap, you know, people of color, because people of color were not the, you know, I had an agent, you know, but I was their artist for people of color. You know, I never there was this idea that if you aren't white, you can't do white people. And if your clientele is only Black, then you don't know how to do. There's like this crazy, you know, again, non-creative people put in creative roles. I'm going to say, but you know, so I did. I had, you know, with Sean. I know he's going through a lot of things right now, but I had a lot of really great experiences with him, with Tupac, with Biggie, all of them. But I don't know. I think one of the funnest things is Macy Gray. Like, you know, I worked with Macy during the, you know, height of her career, and she's become this amazing actress. And I did several, you know, album covers and projects with her. And she's she hates makeup. She's a non-makeup girl, and I would have to do her makeup late. She would have to lay down all the time. She would have to lay down. And, you know, people, let me just say something. Like, people think she's high all the time. She's not. She just talks like that, but she just would hate makeup. And then as soon as I would get everything done, she would take her hands and just rub her whole face, everything, and then scratch with her nails. And I would just sit there and go, oh, okay, lay down again. You know, like,
wow.
Because she couldn't stand the makeup process. She would just lay there. Working with Etta James. I worked with Etta James, you know, like before she died, like just amazing. Like, I've had such an amazing career. The people and places and things I've done, just amazing. Like, my whole experience on the original Friday movie was insanely joyous and happy and hard, you know, like just so many things, so many.
Well, thank you for sharing it with us.
I can't imagine. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking me to share.
Yeah, it's been a real pleasure.
We've got 1 minute left, and I just want to ask what's next for Beautyblender. Any specific vision for 2024 and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, 2024 is a really exciting year for us. I have some really great launches coming up. Really just more of the same, but what's exciting for me is just seeing my ideas come to life, you know? So yeah, I just more of the same. I don't know how to, I mean, that's just the truth.
More winning.
I mean, and
When,
you know,
yes,
it's
more
not
winning.
mundane or repetitive because I love what I do. So for me, it's super exciting that I get this opportunity for another year to do
I love
this.
Where can people keep an eye out for what's coming next? You said you had some interesting things in the works.
Oh, I just launched this product, Iconic, which is amazing. It's the bright Beautyblender pink, and it's this amazing. I don't know, just the marketing, the creative marketing behind it is just beautiful. I just have been getting awards. I launched just a couple months ago primer and setting sprays that are just so beautiful, smell good. Yeah, you've got those
got
there.
the primer.
Let's put that right up there on screen.
They're
Yeah,
award winning
come on,
already.
Jordan.
They're so good. I'm just,
That's so cool.
so proud of the stuff we're putting out. It's such high quality. Our price point isn't too high. We're not like mastige. We're like right in that sweet spot. It's just really, amazing to have partners like Sephora and Ulta. I mean, those are like the big, what are they called? Behemoths?
Behemoths.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
the behemoths in our world.
Behemoths of
behemoths.
beauty. Yeah. I mean, I just feel so fortunate. I'm just really honored that I get to do it another year,
Well, that is our time. And Rea Ann, thank you for sharing with us and for bringing your wisdom to our audience. I think everyone is going to really appreciate that you did this and took this time. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Rea Ann.
Thank you, guys. So nice to meet both of you. And Cash, I mean, how did we not meet on set? I don't know. You look about 12. I don't know how long you've been doing it. But, maybe
I started in 2008. So I
was still working then.
Okay.
I was still working.
And I was in New York primarily. I wasn't in LA until 2018. So worked out in LA, but I don't know. And I've known of you and your reputation for many, many years. I've heard
a lot of people don't though, because I'm not like an Instagram social media makeup artist. Like, you know what I mean? Like they don't know. A lot of people don't. I mean, some do, but
yeah, no, a lot of people don't.
Don't be so modest.
People know who you are. Yeah. This is like I don't know anybody on set that like doesn't have your product.
That's
so,
different. That's different. They don't know me and my career.
I guess like there were. Do you know Mark Townsend by any chance? Or
of course,
yeah. So like.
Mark. Yeah.
So there are a lot of people that I worked with and coming up as an assistant that just kind of like I hear stories, people talk about other people, and so it's
Mark was in that time. I think we actually had the same agent for a while.
What agency?
Well, I was with Tracy Mattingly, and then I was also with Timothy Priano before that. Those were like kind of like my lifelong career agents.
That's amazing. They both said no to me.
There you go.
Well,
again, creative people and non-creative, or non-creative people in creative positions. I mean,
if you're a hairstylist, if you're a creative professional, and you are interested in your financial well-being, remember to like and subscribe so that more episodes just like this one show up in your YouTube feed.